You're all here to see Ferdinand today. It's a great film, and after the film, we have a Q&A with the director, Carlos Saldanha. He's here. He is an Oscar nominee for both Ferdinand and a short film he did back in 2004, and he also did Rio and Rio 2 and Ice Age, so he's a really great guy, and we have him here along with two other alumni who work at Blue Sky Studios, which created the film, Mark Adams and Ricky Renna. So we hope you'll stick around for that Q&A. It'll be really, really interesting. But first, we always have a short film before our features here during After School Special. And this new short film was sent to me. It's called Tasteful, and it's by alumnus Morr Meroz. And it's really adorable, and I can't wait for you to see it. So I want to have Morr come up here with current student Dominic Bedesi. And Dominic is a student in our graduate Department of Computer Arts. But quickly, Morr, after graduating from SVA while working as a character animator in numerous New York production studios, he founded Bloop Animation Studios and started producing animated short films like the one you'll see today. Today, in addition to making films, Bloop Animation's educational initiative created a popular animation learning platform reaching millions of people with courses, books, and tutorials about animation filmmaking. So we're going to have a brief Q&A with Morr and Dominic right now. Let's welcome them.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
How are we doing today? We're good? Excellent. Oh, that was weak. How are we doing today? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, Mr. Morr, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for allowing us to watch this great film, which I have seen twice now. So my first question will be, having left SVA, how's been your career thus far, your career path?
It was very different, I think. I started at different studios right out of school and very quickly kind of changed paths into working on my own projects. So I started making short films. This is the third one I made after I left SVA. And I started teaching animation also as well to kind of combine the option of making films with actually like influencing like students and like younger people wanting to get into animation. So I don't really know how it turned out this way, but it's been really fun for me.
So what can you tell us a little bit more about maybe the best part about your film, what you enjoyed working on the most?
Sure. My favorite part was for the first time I got to work with a team. So versus my first two films, which I did almost by myself, and this time I had about 14 people working on it from different places around the world, all working together on their spare time. And I had like a producer and a storyboard artist, and it was a very different experience having very talented people kind of putting their input. So not everything is just like my ideas, but it's usually better ideas because there's so many people working on it, and it came out in a way that I would never be able to do it by myself. So that was my favorite part.
Understood. And I'm sure you came through some challenges along the way. Could you talk about maybe the biggest challenge you had and how you overcame that challenge?
I think the biggest challenge was how long everything took. So that film is 2.5 minutes long, and it took about 2.5 years to make, which is, I know, it's a very long time. And it's mostly because we were all working on our spare time. So it wasn't anyone's full-time job, and it's really hard to produce something that looks good in 3D when you're only working in between jobs and you're on evenings, weekends. So that and also communicating with so many people, which is why I had a producer, and it was very helpful. But still, there's so many people in different time zones, and they all have to keep producing work all the time for that long. That was probably the biggest challenge.
So, having said that, then what do you want the biggest takeaway to be from people when they see your film?
So it's a 2-minute short, so anything I say about it is going to ruin part of it. So I'm just going to say, in general, the kind of thing that I was trying to go for with this film is that you're never going to be able to please everybody, and if you're going to keep trying to do that, it's always going to end badly. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, understood. Well, thank you so much. Again, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Tasteful.
Carlos Saldanha was born in Rio de Janeiro and moved to New York in 1991. His career began as the director of animation for the computer-generated characters in Fight Club, and soon after he co-directed Ice Age and Robots. He also directed the Oscar-nominated animated short film Gone Nutty. He followed those successes with Ice Age The Meltdown and Ice Age Dawn of the Dinosaurs. He then created and directed the worldwide success Rio, a love letter to his hometown, followed by Rio 2 shortly after. Carlos received the CinemaCon International Filmmaker of the Year Award in 2012 and was nominated for Best Animated Feature Oscar for Ferdinand in 2018. Mark Adams studied film at the University of Tennessee, where he focused on stop-motion animation. He then moved to New York to study at SVA's MFA Computer Art program. He's currently the supervisor of the Crowds Department at Blue Sky Studios, and over the last 12 years at Blue Sky, he's worked in both the lighting and effects departments. His most recent Crowds work on Ferdinand earned the Crowds and Character Simulation Department's of Visual Effects Society nomination in Simulated Effects. And finally, Ricky Renna was born an Italian national in Chile. After growing up watching cartoons and playing all the games he could get his hands on, he decided to pursue his BFA in animation at the Ringling College of Art and Design. Following that, he earned his MFA in computer art at SVA. He has since worked at Blue Sky Studios, animating on such titles as the Peanuts movie, Ice Age Collision Course, and Ferdinand. Please welcome Carlos, Mark, Ricky, and our moderator, Dominic.
Hello again, everybody. First and foremost, gentlemen, congratulations on a very successful film.
Thank you.
And also, thank you for being here. Welcome back to SVA. How does it feel? How does it feel?
Feels good.
Great.
Glad to be back.
So, first question will be, post-SVA, how has it been getting to where you are now, career-wise?
I've been out a long time, so you guys are fresher.
Well, I guess I'm the freshest out of SVA. It's been great. I think, SVA prepared us pretty well for the professional world. I got hired pretty much straight out of school. So, I was in touch with...
That's the dream.
Blue Sky, yeah. I was in touch with the recruiters, and they knew when I was graduating and basically just plucked me right out and gave me work right off the bat. So it was great.
Yeah, I was in a similar situation right out of SVA. I started working at the mill for a little while. I was a runner and learned to make really good coffee for everybody. But then Blue Sky snatched me up and been there for 12 years now. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I've been at Blue Sky for a long time, 25 years since the early days. So happy that these two came along, and then there's more SVA, students there. So it's been great. Like my time was different when I graduated, so it was not many movies out there. So the company was smaller. Blue Sky was like 25 people. Now it's like 500 and almost 600. So we grew quite a bit. But nevertheless, it was like the being at SVA was like the starting point for me. Is like I still remember my good times here. It's still the same building, everything. So it's been good to be in touch and share a little bit of what we do after school,
So getting into the movie now, you hit on some very serious topics. Ferdinand's father in the opening says a very powerful line saying that, I wish the world worked for you in that manner, but it doesn't work for us. Can you guys individually just talk about that dynamic and breaking away from stereotypes and getting boxed in a sense?
Yeah, the premise of the movie was about, what is it to be different? What is it, like how do the world see you, having expectations for how you look like, or what your role what they think is your role in the world, and then when you pose that challenge to not only to young kids or to adults, it's always going to be something that you're going to have to deal with that all the way through it. So that was a moment that the father, through experience, with just getting to tell the kid that, this is how it is, so, and also gives us that kind of feeling that, that rooting for Ferdinand to possibly change that, just like to fight to change, So it was a very tricky moment. That was the last sequence that was animated in the production, pretty much, almost the last one. And because it was a very important one, so we had to really nail it and do it right. So, it's one of my favorite moments too.
Yeah, for me, it's a great sentiment. Having two kids of my own, I can relate. You want your kid to be themselves, to really kind of go through the world through the way they are accepted. But sometimes it's not always that way, and it's one of those life lessons where you can you tell your kid, you wish everything could be roses for you, but you know it's not always going to be, and it's one of those things you learn through time.
I know you don't have kids. But I mean, you
are a kid. What do you feel? How do you feel?
No, I mean, I think Ferdinand has a fantastic message for everyone. It's like Carlos said, even it's about being yourself. The world isn't always a fair place, but it's about staying true to what you feel you need to be, who you feel you need to be, and just like friends and family helping you along the way, right? Like, I think it's a pretty widespread message that can relate to anyone, right? It's good stuff for anyone, anywhere in the world. So. Yeah.
He has a very strong love for flowers. Can we talk about that? What is the inspiration for this flower love he has?
The book. I was stuck with the book. That was the fun thing about the book. When I read the book for the first time, it was always that kind of like, contrast, of like a tough big bull and flowers, I think the book was written in 36, I think. And then after that, there was a short. And the flower was always that kind of like element of like it's about being pure, being delicate, being like, what is the representation of flower? And that was the symbolism, I think, for many interpretations, which I thought that was the power of the book. The book was so popular because people could identify the book in so many different ways that it became something important for discovering who they are, for appreciating who they are, and all those things. So I wanted in the movie to carry that symbolism, and so the flower carries that through the storyline. So that's like and I do like flowers. So
yeah, flowers smell good, man. Like who doesn't like flowers?
That is true. So Ferdinand is a very unconventional character, as we know. Jumping back in time a little bit. So robots, Rodney Copperbottom had Fender. We know that Manfred had Sid, now Lupe is by far a very interesting character. What is it about these characters that make them so important in these kinds of films?
Well, usually, like, it's the combination of the protagonist and the sidekick. It's always that kind of like dynamic that allows you to use them as a sounding board and using you to kind of like to help you through the story. So there's somebody that he can trust, or that the protagonist, or could really relate, and maybe usually they don't relate. They are completely opposites, but they become friends, and then that's kind of like helps the arc, and always they make a good like a comedic, element to animation. I think so it's a very important role, and that one was really. Took us a while to get it right, so, and of course, Kate McKinnon, like, drives it home beautifully and brings that kind of, like, edge to it.
Yeah, she's great. And that's one nice thing about sidekicks is they can say things that the main character can't, and they can kind of take the punches that you wouldn't want the main character to. And so, yeah, Kate McKinnon did a great job on that.
Yeah, they protect the protagonist in a way,
Also, protagonists, they're there to be like relatable and like, oh, we're rooting for them, we want it to work out. The sidekicks is really our excuse to just be gross and funny, and Lupe burps stuff up all the time, and that's where we want people to laugh mostly. We want people to feel for Ferdinand, but we want them to be like, oh, this is still fun because Lupe's there with him, and they're having this journey together. So, yeah.
So all three of you sit at different desks for this project. What do you think was the most pivotal thing to make sure that it came together as a solid film?
Well, I think for us, like, we have constant meetings, like we have every day touch base, like every time there is something new or we need to see something, like we have to get the meetings, and then we try to get the team together, with Mark, was always like talking about like the effects, the crowds, and like where they would have to be. So there's very like, and that works together with animation because some of the stuff comes off of animation into the crowds, and then they have to go back and forth. So there's a lot of interaction. So, and it's really important to keep those because it's important for everybody to share the same vision or to be aligned with the same vision. And also for me to understand from their side what is possible, not possible, how can I achieve it, or what are the complexities that we can probably either fix in earlier in story or try to figure out a solution for it that everybody will be happy with the final result. But I think the commonality is like that we all want to make a great movie. We all want to make great scenes. So all the meetings was more about that conversation than it is too much about, some of the super details. It's just like being together to figure out like how can I do this the best way possible.
One of the pivotal points for the crowds department was making sure the arena was what Carlos was envisioning, making sure the emotion was in there, as well as all the technical aspects. How do we get 12,000 human characters with fur, with cloth simulation rendered correctly? And so trying to get through all that, as well as the volume of the amount of shots that we had. I think the arena sequences, there were 3 of them, composed more than half of our shots for the total movie. And so that big chunk of work was key for us.
Yeah, I'd say communication is essential, and that's the most important thing a good studio can have is good communication. It's like with any movie, you'll have changes, small and large, some affecting just a small portion of the movie, others, rippling down, making the movie altogether different by the end. So communicating that, especially for the animation department, where, maybe you get a slightly different line on this one. Oh, maybe we want this character to be a little less mean in this shot, like it can kind of change stuff. But as, communication is the important thing, is that everybody's on the same page. Yeah.
So quite a few students, including myself, were getting into our thesis year, and of course there will come challenges and sleepless nights. So I want to ask each one of you, and it can be in regards to this film or just in general on your career path, what did you find to be extremely challenging, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, I guess one piece of advice I have for students, especially going in your senior year, is a lot of people seem to think that you're doing this thing where you don't sleep, where you're just going to stay up all night and work through the night, and it's going to be great and it's going to work. And I found that, in both my degrees, undergrad and master's, the thing that helped me the most was to save time for sleep. Sleep at night, wake up early, get to work, right? Maybe leave something rendering overnight, like things that don't need you to be present, and you'll just be in such a better mindset. I remember coming in freshly slept and seeing people with their hoodies on and their bags under their eyes, just like barely clacking away, and I'd just be there, crack my knuckles and just get at it. So get sleep, man.
Time management is key.
Yeah.
Well, another thing I always like to, when I look back of my thesis project, it's kind of like I look back with such pride because it is probably the only work that I consider to be 100% mine. It's just like, even if it's a short or even if it's like not perfect because it's a student project and all that, I look back and I have so much pride and joy to watch those projects. And I think that when you guys are feeling tired or feeling kind of like, oh my gosh, this is taking so long, keep in mind that this is nothing, It gets a lot harder, but so then enjoy and savor these moments because it's your moment, It's the time that you have for yourself to do something, it's yours. And yes, it's not going to be perfect, but nothing's perfect. So you might as well just have fun doing it. Pour your heart out to your project because it's yours. Nobody's telling you to do this or that. Just do it because it comes from you. So that's the most important thing for me.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things SVA offered that I feel like I took advantage of. It was 2 years of concentration of I'm gonna figure this out. And the students around me, we learned so much from each other. Group work is very important. You rarely, other than college, once you're in the industry, you rarely do anything by yourself. And so being able to communicate with other team members, you don't always get along, but you work through it and something better comes from it. So.
Beautiful. So we have one more question, and then we're going to actually turn it over to the audience. So if you guys have any questions you'd like to ask these lovely gentlemen here, take time to think about it. My final question for all of you is, who is your favorite character?
In which movie?
Touché, sir, touché. Who was your favorite character in Ferdinand?
Ferdinand, wow. usually in the movies, like the protagonist for me is the one that I always pick as a favorite because they always they are the ones that you spend the most time like working on and you get it. And but I still think it's Ferdinand my favorite character because the name of the movie is the only movie that I've done that the name of the movie is the name of the protagonist, and then this one I think I have, even though I love Lupe, I think it's a fun character. The hedgehogs are great, the horses are super funny, but when I look at him, in this particular one, I think that, because Ferdinand is such iconic element of the story, I find that he is actually my favorite. Yeah.
I love Ferdinand, I love Lupe, but for me, I really like Valiente, which is maybe kind of weird, but he has...
It's a great one.
He has one of the most dramatic changes through the movie, and just to see his character arc is interesting to me.
I'm going to be an insufferable contrarian and just go the other way altogether. I think El Primero, for me.
I was going to say, that's another special.
Because, Ferdinand's a strong guy, and you see that throughout the movie. He's almost unwaveringly strong, and that's what we like about him, is that, he drives the team forward. He's like the driving force and the glue that holds them together. El Primero is he's out there on his own, and he thinks he's the best, right? But at the end, he learns the biggest lesson of them all. He gets a slap in the face, learning humility. So I think for him, to be humiliated in front of so many people and to maybe not be ending on the best note, he learns that, oh man, maybe I was in the wrong all these years. Maybe it's not about being the best. So I know, I think, plus all this style and pizzazz that he has throughout just makes him, I don't know, he's lovable for me.
He's great.
Yeah.
Excellent dancer too, as we've seen.
That's good. We all had one. So.
All right, so now we're going to open it up for questions, and we'll be running mics all over. Lots of questions.
Yeah, ask fast, ask swag.
Hi, my name is Michael Witter. I'm a storyteller, and I write. I wanted to find out about getting into the business and doing something. But my question, the little girl, disposable characters are really essential to your movies because even though they're disposable characters, they move the character along. Nobody mentioned that. Like in Home Alone, that little boy that they counted, and why the little boy was upstairs and left alone. Nobody remembers these disposable characters and brings it in. But my question was, you said you looked at the book, but what happened to the movie from the 60s? Why didn't you look at that one?
I looked at the short as well, but the short, it was stylistically and tonally was not what I was looking for. I was looking more for what I felt about the book than it is what I saw in the short. So and actually growing up, I grew up in Brazil, like I'm from Brazil, like I never knew of the book there. I knew only about the short. So that was my first memory in my head. And but when I decided to make the movie, I didn't watch the short. I went to read the book with my children, and I tried to really understand what I wanted to tell, what the story I wanted to tell from the book more. So I just kind of detached myself from the short. So, but that's...
Also, the book is like 8 pages long.
I know.
And we had to make 90 minutes out of it. So, of course, we're going to embellish the story, try to find pieces where we can add entertainment. It's an old story, and we're trying to make a new one.
Yeah, the key is to keep the core, the essence of it, like be true to who you are, and however interpretation you give, that will be the. But that's the.
Excellent.
The gist.
Question over there.
Hi, that was a really beautiful film. I loved the points of humor and the attention to beauty. So thank you. I'm just curious, what inspired all of you to work in animation specifically?
Wow, I have a computer science background, but I was always artistic. I always loved to draw and paint and things like that, but that was always seen as a hobby. So when I thought about going to school, and I told my parents I wanted to go to art school, that was a big kind of shock. Art school, it's like, what is that? Is that a job, a profession? No, it's a... No, don't go to art school. Just do something that.
Are you going to starve for the rest of your life?
Yeah, it's like, what? What are you gonna do? And so I went to computer science, which I loved, but then the art always stayed within me. So when I discovered computer science, I said, like, I have to do that because computer graphics, because it's the way I can merge my two loves, computer technology and animation and art. And then that's why I decided just to pursue it. And then when I saw that people were not only doing special effects, but also doing like telling stories, that was even better. And then when I started to see shorts, that's what motivated me to come to school. Tell stories.
Yeah, I started off in film with stop motion, and that kind of led the way. I'd always been into computers, into programming, but from stop motion, I transitioned into the computer with similar techniques.
Well, I think it's that feeling you described, when you got up and asked the question and you said that movie was really beautiful, thanks for making it. That's the feeling that we want to give people. That's the feeling I like feeling when I watch a movie. So really that's what got me into the entertainment industry, is I like to entertain and be entertained.
Have another question?
Hi. Beautiful movie. Our family really loved it, and along with all the other Blue Sky movies. I was just curious, internally, Blue Sky, what's the relationship, if you guys look at others, the output of other studios, such as Universal's Illumination and Disney Pixar, is it a friendly competition? Do you guys I'm just curious, how do you guys aggressively look?
Is there an animation war?
Yeah.
I'm just curious how do you guys look at other stuff, at what they're doing, and how does that affect your output?
Yeah, well, it doesn't. I don't know if it affects directly, but there's always like this understanding of the culture around us. Like it's actually, I have to say that it's very friendly, the relationships, because a lot of the people that worked at Blue Sky is working there, and a lot of people that work there was working at Blue Sky. So it's kind of like there's nothing to go against each other. It's just more about like working, like being healthy in making good movies. I think as long as everybody's making good movies, it's good for everybody. So I think that's the mentality behind it. So it's really great. Like when I watch a movie that I love, I goes like, oh, that's great. I'm just so proud for them. And then I hope one day I can make one as good as, so, and that's the drive, is just trying just to keep looking at everybody's work and trying to say, like, how can I do better? How can I make better? How can I appreciate what they do? And also they appreciate what I do. And it's good. Every time we go to visit, to talk to people in other studios, they're always very complimentary of the work that we do. And honestly, that's what bonds us together, is the stories that we tell, the movies that we make.
Yeah, it's a very small community comparatively to other industries, and it's always great for one movie will set the bar, and then the next and the next, and it's a healthy competition, and when we go to conferences and whatnot, we find that when you get down to it, we're all trying to solve the same issues. Oh, how did you do this? Oh, we did it like this. How did you do that? And it's the sharing of ideas, but the movie output, it's great to see what other people are doing and then say, oh yeah, well, let's see if we can do something different or better. It's a healthy competition.
Yeah, I mean, we don't like wear flags or like go with like war paint and stuff and like Blue Sky. Like, we're all very friendly to each other, and especially I know animators in my department who have been doing this for 30, 40 years. And it hasn't been all at Blue Sky. They've been all over. They've worked at Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar. They kind of zigzag around. The industry changes, and sometimes life takes you different places, right? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be friends with someone. And they bring a lot to the table, like so much experience from working on so many different movies. I think we have a really great relationship with all of the Los Angeles guys out west.
We have one in the back. We're going to try to get as many questions as possible, I promise. Go ahead.
Hello, all the way in the back.
Hi.
I just want to thank you guys for coming out. It was very great. My name is Olu. I'm actually a SVA alum. And one of the things I appreciate about the film is just the variety of animation styles for each one of the bulls. I mean, if you look at it, they're not moving the same way, even though a few of them have the same sort of size, particularly. But when you look at the horses, they look pretty much uniform. So I was wondering if you guys could just share what did you guys do to sort of give each bull its own characteristic, in the way that it moved, the weight, the balance, all those things. The research you guys did. I just want to know more about that.
Well, it's a process. Like, this is the fun part of when we're developing the story, or when we're trying to get the movie together. Is like, because we have all these different characters, we really try to come up with personalities, and we create a little story about each one of them and what makes them physically that way. And that's when it goes down to the animation team. Like, we really brainstorm and have fun animating. So we make sure that each one of them has specific, way of moving, and that reflects a little bit of the personality, and so it's a character study that we do, and then what's make it feel interesting is that everything is not just, one is not like the other. You have everyone needed to be different, and I think that was something that, and of course once you start working with the animators, they come up with so many great ideas, and the characters come to life, and that's the kind of like the fun part of it.
I didn't work on the bulls, so
Yeah. Rick did.
Well, we have so many extremely talented individuals at Blue Sky, and I think the leads and the soups in the animation department are particularly to thank for all those intricacies in the characters, because they really develop them from scratch. They'll be like, all right, this is the character, this is how he's supposed to act. They'll make spreadsheets, they'll create do's and don'ts on what we as animators are supposed to do. We check in with them if we have those characters in our shots. I mean, they are like the most knowledgeable person for each individual character. There's somebody for everybody. So I think they're the ones that really pulled through with the bulls and made them exceptional. Yeah.
I know that you said your favorite characters. What's your least favorite character, and what character do you think is the funniest?
What a brilliant question, young man.
Least favorite.
No one wants to answer that question.
No, because it's hard. Like, usually I have this theory that I only put stuff in the movie that I like. So I usually, if it's something that I don't like, I try to figure out a way to get rid of it. And that's part of the process. Like, so I gotta like them in order to be in them. So they gotta earn their place, in the story for me to like. So I don't have a least favorite. I think it would be unfair to get one that is like, oh, I really hate that character. If I had that feeling, I would just, out.
I've got one.
Yeah,
I've got one. Okay, so
it's easier for them to say, like,
yeah.
this is like my children. I cannot pick favorites.
He can't.
It's in the crowd, and you may agree with me once you hear. There's one guy in the crowd who has a very particular body shape, and we called him Dad Thumb because he had no neck.
That's right.
And so we could only use him.
Hate him a little.
We could only use that character in certain parts of the movie, or you would identify him too easily. So that would be
right.
That would be my.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And we tried to get rid of him a few times, So. And what was the other question you had? Like, the least favorite and
Funniest.
the funniest. Wow, the funniest. It depends on the scene, but Lupe is pretty funny. I think that Lupe and the horses are funny too. I love the horses too. So
I really like Dos. Out of that
Dos is
chunk.
funny, yeah.
Dos is great. He's got the whole like revolutionary thing going on. I think his line delivery is really great, so I always really liked him.
We got one in the back.
what? Oh, hi.
Okay, so
Don't hurt yourself now.
about the animation on like the dancing. How did you do the animation without having like IK snapping or something, like technical glitches with the animation?
Wow.
We have an
You're
animator
hired.
in the audience.
You're hired.
How old are you?
Yeah. Well, those problems did happen many times. We just kind of like figure out a way just to fix them or to hide them as we do it.
We have an awesome rigging department.
And the awesome rigging department, the animation, like, cheating and just moving things out of the way. But the problems do happen. But when you do like a big dance number specifically where things are very exaggerated, they're very broad, big, it's easier to hide the problems, and because you have fun with the timing, you break the rules. So breaking the rules, like it's okay to break the rig. So yeah, but those problems did happen.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, echo. I just had a quick question. I'm a huge fan of Rio, like not even just animated. It's one of my favorite films. So when drawing like blue macaws and woolly mammoths and now bulls, how do you make that determination between going like to animal to human characteristics? Like how do you make that? Okay, bye.
Well, yeah, it's each movie. It's interesting because every movie that we make, it's a new thing, you know. So we try just to learn what we've done on the previous one, but we try to walk in fresh to the process. So we really talk about the rules, talk about the characters, the vibe, the look, and so we try to be as distinct as we can. So each one of them will look different. You know, Ice Age is different than Robots. That's different than Rio. That's different than Ferdinand. And it helps just kind of like really, you know, for me, when I look at a style of a movie, I try to just to pitch to the designer, you know, like what is the vibe? What is, you know, Ferdinand was about warmth. It was about like, you know, being yourself. It's about like, you know, being big but cuddly, you know. So the character of Ferdinand needed to feel, you know, that you could hug, you know, that kind of feeling. So, and Rio was about like colors and fun and birds and being out there, you know. The palette is about like being like, you know, just gigantic rainbow of tropical colors. And then that's what I wanted to come out of it. So the characters need to have a lot of that element. So each movie, we kind of talk a lot about the essence, actually the essence of the story and what we're trying to do. And then the characters transpire, you know, the characters come to life after that, you know, naturally, you know. So it's definitely a fun project, but each one is different.
Hi, I just want to thank you very much. Actually, I got my master's degree a while back, like 2000 something. As a young filmmaker, what would you recommend what they want to do? And also about the movement of the eye and the coloring. I mean, the lighting, obviously. When you mentioned earlier about the chocolate, I know it's very important to project the warm feeling because as all movie goer, you know, you want to get the commonality, I guess, right? Which is very, very important. And yeah, what would you suggest? And the second part of the question, do you guys use Final Cut Pro or do you still use Avid?
No. We use the Avid, but we use sometimes Final Cut Pro for a couple of like, you know, previs or animatics or storyboard. But you know, the eyes in animation are very important because the eyes are usually the part of the character that I work the most in terms of design and in terms of like when we work with the animators, sometimes we have a shot that is just the face and the eyes. And people says like, in production, look at the shot, it's only 2 seconds, just eyes. Okay, that would be an easy shot. That shot will stay forever. You know, because those are the hardest shots. Those are the you know, when you, you know, that whole thing about the eyes is the window to your soul kind of thing. That stuff is true. You know, if the characters don't have compelling eyes, if you don't look the characters in the eyes and you find truth, then the movie doesn't do its job. So, and that's where we work the most. So it's super important to do it. And the look of the movie is like, carries the same kind of like importance. You know, the lighting is telling a story. Like, I think making a movie is not just only, you know, going through one process, through all the layers of storytelling that involves lighting, involves character appeal, involves animation, involves like acting, involves you know, the design, you know, everything counts, you know, and everything gives like a little extra to the movie. So it's so when if you want something to feel moody, you need to use the lighting to help you and the music to help you on top of the animation. So that's all I look for. You know, if a young filmmaker, just like look for inspiration, just look for movies that you liked, that you looked, and you got the emotion that you need to get, and try to understand how they did it, and then that's how you do it.
That's what I was going to say. Reference. You know, if you're going for a certain feel in a sequence that you're setting up, find another movie that has given you that feel and study it and say how did it draw my eye this way, or what about the lighting gave me a spooky feeling, or you know, that sort of thing. Reference and study as much as possible.
I'd say make them. Just make movies, right? It doesn't take much. You want to animate, you know, get a sketch pad. Start flipping through it. You want to make a movie, you know, borrow your mom's camcorder or something, right? Like anyone can have access to this stuff these days. It's really easy.
And you learn as you make it too.
Yeah. You learn the most, I think, out of making stuff. You learn why it's hard. You learn to appreciate them for what they are. You learn to look at other people's movies and be like, wow, like when I did that, it looked terrible, but you guys made it look really good. That must have been hard. So,
amen. That's all I can say.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Amanda Brooks. And before I ask a question, I'd like to thank you very much because your movies are great. I'm the aunt that watches it with them 5 times in a row. So I'm glad they're good.
I apologize.
No, it's good because I'm a big kid. It works. I have a question. Why? This is one of my favorite childhood books. Why did you choose this book? It's such a small book, but it has such a great message.
Well, when I start to embark on a new project, I know that project is going to take a long time out of my life. Usually these movies take like 3-4 years. Ferdinand took a little bit more than that. And it's got to be worth going into that journey, you know. So when I was at the time, I was toying with the idea of doing a movie with a similar story, like with a bull and a boy, and then I was creating a story there until I came up with the book. I came upon the book and I read the book and I was like, well, why don't we make this book? Well, it's a known property, something that, you know, is beloved. Why don't we just use this as the starting point? And I embarked on that journey because when I read the book, I felt the emotion that I wanted to feel that inspired me to expand it to like to the story. And I thought it was a message worth telling. You know, we live. And interesting, when I started this was like over 7 years ago that I started. The world was quite a different place back then. And it's amazing how it changed, you know, through the times. As I was making the movie, I could see the world changing. And more I was excited about making this movie because I felt it was relevant to the message of what I wanted to pass it on to the people that are watching, to this new generation that's like, that hopefully will change for better. You know, so it's just kind of like, it almost felt like this kind of like the right book in the right time, even though the book was written in 36. I think that the coming back of the movie was like a reminder of these timeless stories that matters to us, you know, as an adult and having children and watching with them, being able to walk out of the movie and telling, you see, it's worth it, you know, like, and that for me is the reward. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Hello, I'm Jaime. I'm from Spain. I enjoyed going to see the movie with my nephews. I couldn't see the whole movie because one of them is 2 years old, but I enjoyed it anyway. So I'm a writer, and I would like to know when you have a script on your hands and you are reading all these like 90 pages, 100 pages, what you are looking for, and what is the thing that normally moves something in you so you feel engaged with the story?
Well, it's usually characters, you know, like if I find like the thread of the story compelling, but it's told through the perspective of characters that, you know, really excite me, that I feel that I can be looking the movie through their eyes, that's where it usually grabs me. Like, you know, it's less about plot. You know, usually when I read a script that tells a lot of like, and then this happens, and then that thing happens, and then I don't know why it's happening, I just like get tired and I can, you know, fall asleep. And so when I read a movie that I'm going through the life story of something or somebody, or if I can't wait to go to the next page to know what's going to happen with that person. When I care about the characters, that's when I love the script, and that's for me key more than anything. Look, in a movie like this, of course we adapted like a you know, as Ricky was saying, like 9-page book into like, you know, a 90-minute movie. But it's part of it is just always asking the question, like, what are the character feeling? Like, how do put yourself in that place? You know, because we can come up with set pieces, we can come up with fun chase sequences through Madrid, we can come up with like, you know, bullfight, we can do that stuff, like everybody can, you know. But telling a story that is compelling and inspiring about a character's journey, that is always the hardest part. I would start always with that.
Yeah, I'd say I'd rather watch fun characters sit around and do nothing than bad characters go through like crazy adventures. Like, it's just much more entertaining to have characters that you relate to, characters that are fun to you, right?
That you care about.
Right, exactly.
Oh, where did the idea to cast John Cena come from? Was that from the start or that come afterwards?
It came actually afterwards. The John Cena thing was tricky because Ferdinand was a very difficult character to cast because I wanted to have a powerful voice, but I wanted to be likable and I wanted to be funny. So we had to get all those elements. And we tried many, options for voices, but none of them really gave us the, sometimes the one voice gave us, fun, but didn't give heart. Sometimes I gave too much heart, but it wasn't so funny. So it was kind of like that kind of like balance. So when the idea of John Cena came on, I actually thought of John Cena first for another character, for Guapo. That was the name that I thought. But I didn't I didn't follow through on that, and then when the chance came that for Ferdinand, and he was available, and he read the character, and he called me, and then just talking to him in person, I was like, you are Ferdinand. How can I miss that? It's like, and so he got the role, and then he was perfect. It's one of those kind of combinations things, like when you have a character that you look at it, you hear it, and then you instantly see that that's the character. It's just such a great moment in animation. The same thing happened with Blue, with Jesse Eisenberg. Like, I had tried other actors before, but the minute that he went to the booth and he read the lines, I was like, we don't need to do any work on the lines because this guy is perfect. So it was kind of like one of those like synergies that when it happens, when you see the combination of personality, heart, comedy, and the character voice comes out of it, it's a no-brainer. But it's hard to get there, though. We try a lot and fail.
Hi. I'm with my daughter, and I asked her to ask the question, but she's shy, so I'm gonna ask for her. I always thought she had a funny voice as a little girl, and my family and I always wanted to get her into acting and doing voices. Knowing the story of Dora and other children that do voiceovers, how do they begin that process, getting into that field? And do you always know the actors that you want to do the voices, or do you take auditions?
We do take auditions. When it's sort of like a main cast and like big actors, we go through a list of actors that are available, or they have the personality or the what we need for the character, so that we go through a bunch of tests. Animation, we do a bunch of tests with the voices, like pick voices from movies that they've done, animate to that to see if it works. So there's a lot of devices we can do. When it comes down to children, it's a different thing, because it's a whole separate part of the process. So we do a lot of casting, but we go through a casting agency. So I think usually the best thing would be to do auditions, or to put record the voices, or have some kind of agency that will shepherd the process, because it's hard to go directly to a child, and it has to go through the parents and the agency, through the parents and through the child, because there's a lot of rules and regulations about that. But and sometimes it's just for example, for the voice of Ferdinand, we ended up using a kid that's the son of one of our producers, because it was at Blue Sky, what we do is we record temp voices before we get the real ones, just to try it out. And I fell in love with his voice, and I thought that he was not trained as an actor, and I wanted to be natural, I wanted to be fun, I wanted to be honest, and it was great. And I did a lot of auditions with other kids, and a lot of them were very professional, great, but it didn't give me that kind of truth, and essence of flaw, that the kid did. And it was so sometimes those happy accidents are good, so if there is the wish, I will try to do some auditions and try to be part of a casting, agency. And who knows, sometimes you don't need to be an expert, it's just if you have a special voice and you deliver for a special project, then you got your gig. I think it's the way to do it.
How much money did you make?
Well,
the $1 million question.
I'll give you one of those broad answers. Enough to make me happy.
It's never enough.
That question deserves a big gift.
The most expensive gift.
A most expensive gift from the money that I made in the movie.
What was the hardest character of making? What was the hardest character of drawing?
I think I can say that the longest was Ferdinand, Probably. We worked on that character for a long time, for almost a year, I would say. You know, because it's the main character, so usually the main guy on the screen needs to be like perfect in all levels. So we worked and we designed it, we made it, and then we animated. Oh, let's change something, and then we came back and we changed it again. You know, it was like the head is too big, the head is too small, the body's too big, the body's too small. So we had to do a lot of changes, but so he was for me the hardest.
I thank you for this wonderful film. How do you see animation evolving for the future?
Well, I think we have 3 different generations of animation that we've been through a lot. You know, I've seen from 2D going to 3D, and that's going to be the end of 2D, but actually it's just an evolution of like the process. So I think that for me is like, I think the challenge is because there's so many people making animation, is to keep providing with fresh content, fresh stories to tell, good characters, and finding those stories that's worth telling. So I think continuing that process, I think hopefully animation will continue to thrive and continue to become this thing that people want to go see, and not only kids but adults. And I think it is all about character and story. But technology is changing every second, and as long as the technology changes, but keeping like the integrity of storytelling and character development, I think the future will be very bright. You know.
I would reiterate that where the story is the main driver. The technology will change, and hopefully the technology will open doors of visualizing things we couldn't in the past. But the main part is story, character, and that I think that'll stay true, I hope.
Well, animation's not going anywhere. I mean, it's almost 100 years of animation that we've been through, and it's the best tool we have for telling fantastical stories. Like anything that's out of your imagination, like we can make it happen with animation. Like you're not going to see these images, these stories, these characters told any other way. So people want that. Everybody wants that. You know, adults, kids. Like it's fantastic. Why wouldn't you want it? So it's definitely here to stay. As far as evolution, you know, who knows, you know, what technology is going to be out there, you know, augmented reality, virtual reality, all kinds of cool stuff could be on the horizon. But for now, you know, people like movies. They like going out to the movies. That's kind of what we'll keep doing. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Echo, and I'm a freshman in computer art at SVA. And thank you for this awesome movie. I was just curious, like, because I saw Blue Sky made so many movies with animal as the main character. So what's like the challenges or significance in doing things over and over again, like making animal as main characters? And do you feel like you're kind of limited by this kind of genre?
No, not limited. It's more like, I think it depends on the story. Like when we start to develop the story, if the story requires or asks for animals to be part of it, then it becomes like that. Like the next movie we're making has one animal, but it's like it's humans, and robots was humans. So it depends. It depends on the story. Like I think when the story comes to us, like if it's natural to have it. I personally love doing movies with animals because it allows me to tell grown-up stories and go push it more. The themes and the edginess of it being like hiding behind a sweet face of an animal, and then it's a good device for storytelling for me.
Right, your expectations are different when you're hearing a story from an animal as opposed to a human. It's, you know, you're going into it. The setup is a little different.
Yeah, it's totally different. So I kind of like relate to that, like, but I'm not wed to that at all. You know, it's just like it depends on the story. You know, I'm developing a project right now that's not animals, so but it's. If it takes me that way, I don't shy away from it.
I would even say we don't do movies with animals. They're just people that look like animals, right?
Yeah.
Like we're channeling human emotions and experiences through a different medium. So, you know, to give you a more interesting experience, something more out of the ordinary. So yeah, I think anthropomorphizing.
That's a good one.
Good job.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Write that down.
It's something we've done for thousands of years in storytelling. You know, as people, we like to attribute ourselves to animals, or vice versa. We like to be like, oh, you know, like this great spirit of the deer, you know, that told me this or whatever. And that's kind of like it's continued through the ages, and we still like doing that today. We like telling stories about animals, about ourselves through animals, because sometimes it's just easier for us to relate to that when it's not in your face. This is about you, right? You have to kind of look for that. So, yeah. Great.
Well, let's thank Dominic for being a
Dominic,
great moderator. And let's thank Carlos, Mark, and Ricky for being a terrific panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Carlos and Blue Sky Studios.